Welcome to another After Action report for Trail Challenge. If you are part of Green Team or Red Team, I kindly request you to leave as this video is locked and that is your verbal warning to do so. If you are new to Trail Challenge, it is an ongoing event where teams try to take control of an entire map with the risk-like rules, but where the combat takes place on the actual maps by creations built by the teams. Each video will be mostly self-contained, however, it is recommended to go and watch the others. Sorry for the slight upload delay, it was like a day late. Anyway, almost nothing happened. I forgot to record except for like the last section of the blue fight. But the map didn't change like almost at all, so not much to really say there. I feel like a more interesting topic for this episode is the way that I create my creations. If you've looked at the last couple of creations, you'll see that they all use the very same basic concept. Inner core of internals that I need to protect, such as seat, weapons, gyros, control surfaces, so on and so forth, then covered in an outer layer of light composite. Light composite is the name for spamming grid blocks. Also, the way that I spam grid blocks is also interesting. So, I'm going to be discussing that. I guess the place to start would be the outside. So, I pretty much try to armor everything as much as I can, but because of complexity, I find that one layer of grid blocks over everything tends to do quite well. So why do I use grid blocks? I feel like that's the best place to start. 1, they're lightweight. 2, they have good aerodynamics. And 3, because everyone is running lasers, I have to run the best armor to counter lasers. Now, I went over like the damage charts for Trailmakers before, but basically to summarize, different blocks can stop different amounts of bullets. And different blocks can stop different amounts of lasers. Lasers don't just deal more damage, they deal damage differently. Something like a shield block or a weight block can survive much more bullets than lasers, while other blocks can survive significantly more lasers than bullets. But on average, lasers deal significantly more damage, and there are very little blocks that can survive against them effectively that can also be used as armor effectively. But Trailmakers has this weird thing where a 1x2 has the same amount of HP as a 2x4. So the size of the block doesn't matter, the volume of the block doesn't matter, what matters is just the amount of blocks you place down. So spamming smaller blocks specifically, is more efficient to using larger blocks. Thus, 1x2 blocks, grid blocks. 1x1 pipes can be used, but their hitboxes are a little bit iffy, and also they consume way too much complexity. So I just end up using grid blocks. There is another interesting thing, however, about using grid blocks. There's this concept of armor weaving. So, first I want to go over a term. So, when armor takes damage, it has a chance to be penetrated, a hole being made from completely the outside all the way to the interior. But it also has a chance to fracture. That's when a chunk of it breaks off. By controlling the direction in which blocks are oriented, it's possible to control in which direction damage usually is taken and the direction in which it's usually distributed in. So it's possible to minimize the effects of fracturing by having blocks have more connection points to other blocks. Whereas normally blocks have, assuming a flat plane, 1x2s usually have 4 nearby blocks that they're connected to. However, if they're offset, then that number increases all the way up to 6. Just small stuff like that. And I tend to try to integrate that into my designs. And to stop penetration, instead of laying the direction pointed inwards, I point it perpendicular to where the attacks are coming from. This way, if a block breaks, instead of opening a gap right to the center, it spreads the damage outwards instead of inwards, if that makes any sense. I'm going to be uploading all my designs going forwards, and the ones I use, and the ones I used today will also be uploaded. Onto the actual combat. Not much happened. Red used a ground vehicle, which was a pretty big change, and also an unexpected change for me, because going off of the changes from last time, with the newly adjusted rules for ground vehicles, and the ground vehicles having much more weaponry now, I was still expecting the red team to go for an aircraft, simply because of the amount that they favored aircraft in the past, which is why I designed my fighter craft to be one air superiority craft with a missile. I call it the Salmon of Doom, and then one submarine. Because I was, again, mostly expecting to fight for air superiority rather than attacking the ground. I only really caught the end of this battle, so don't really have much to say here. To show here. But all in all, the Salmon of Doom, it was pretty much a really good boom and zoom interceptor, and nothing past that. And then the missile, which also gets launched from the seat of the Salmon of Doom, is less there to actually get kills and more there as a threat. Because if you stop paying attention to it, there's just a small but non-zero chance that it could hit you. The threat of it distracts the opponents, and at this point I've had my fun with missiles. They aren't exactly going to do much. The only reason I even added it was because if I was going to use up complexity to give the Salmon of Doom a higher top speed, I might as well just add something useful for that complexity, such as a missile. And then for the ground vehicle, I built a submarine with a very similar design, but I was running out of complexity on it. The concept behind this one specifically was that because the cause of death multiple times previously was ramming damage, I slowed it down significantly. So instead of using speed as a defense, it purposefully slows itself down to avoid running into walls. Past that, same design. Light composite shell, internals which are very compacted, dense. What's the word? I'm sorry, I'm tired right now. And yeah, not much to say there. Red team ended up running like a ground craft inside of the dome that could then later drop into the water but then can't come back out. So logically, because the Salmon of Doom can't exactly get there, made a Hail Mary, tried to send it through the entryway, didn't make it in. I tried to blow them up with the missile through a wall because explosions do not get stopped by terrain. So getting intel from Kiwi, which was in the submarine, inside the moon pool of the base, I sent in the missile, rammed it against the wall, which they should have been behind. I missed. None of the splash damage carried through, so that was a failure. So yeah, that's the two biggest complexity draws dead, which just leaves the puny 200 complexity submarine to fight off against 600 complexity worth of ground craft, which resulted in a loss. That's really it. If you want to go watch the other footage, feel free to go watch it on the other channels, but there's really not much content to cover this time, and that's about it. Goodbye.